AI has been taking over the landscape of the internet over the past year or so. It is a lot of fun to write up any prompt and have a computer generate it all for you quickly. I've created a bunch of designs myself, and I've been using AI for most of my thumbnails for the past 2 months. There's another website though that is perfect for making new AI art, and it is called Creative Fabrica, or CF for short, and the program it runs is called CF Spark. Just like DALL-E, it is very easy to enter a prompt and have the computer generate it. Once the computer does the magic, it gives you 4 different images to look at and publish on your very own page. I typed in this, and look at what came up. The images are higher quality than any other AI websites I've used in the past. I love spending my time looking up what I can create with just a few simple words. Also, CF Spark is having a contest going on only in November where you can create art and have the chance to win $100,000. You heard that right, $100,000. If you're already having fun doing this for free, why not try and make some money doing it? So if that interests you, please go to their website, creativefabrica.com/spark. I will leave the link in the description box below so you can start creating your very own art and have the chance to win $100,000. Thank you, and let's start the video. I am a well-experienced psychedelic user. I have been dabbling in all sorts of chemical activities over the last 10 years of my life. I am no spring chicken when it comes to this kind of thing, and I have handled some pretty heavy doses in my time. Lately, a friend of mine has been all about research chemicals, and he has been bringing in a pretty steady flow of different chems. Most of the stuff I am not interested in, but he was able to get 4-ACO-DMT, which is an analog of psilocybin, a nice common tryptamine. What could go wrong? Well, let me tell you. I bought the ACO about 3 months ago, and in that time I had one experience with it, where I ingested about 8 milligrams of it, which resembled a 1-gram mushroom trip. I had one other trip with 4-ACO-DMT previous to that, but it came from a different source. Today, I decided to up that to 20 milligrams, which is still within the normal dosage for the chemical, albeit closer to the higher end of the spectrum. When I went to do it, I noticed that it was no longer a powder. It was now a sticky and brown gum-like texture. I figured that it was just starting to break down, and if anything, become less potent. At about 12:30, I ingested the substance, and almost immediately I started feeling the effects. After about 15 minutes, I was definitely feeling quite high and climbing. I decided to lay down in my bed and listen to some music. I put on an old Psychopod track. As I was listening to the music, I started getting a growing feeling of discomfort all over my body. When the track was over, I got up and put on another one, with the uncomfortable feeling also increasing. It felt close to a 3-gram mushroom trip. As the second track ended, I was starting to feel increasingly drowsy, along with the discomfort. I decided to just listen to silence for a minute and lay in bed, and I had some trouble keeping my eyes open. Suddenly, the clock says that it's been over an hour since I last looked at it, and all I have done is listen to 2 tracks. Now I am thinking that I have possibly just blacked out. The trip is really starting to get intense now, and I could feel my heart rate starting to really move. I am also now getting waves of weakness, and my body is shaking uncontrollably. At this point, I decided it would be a good idea to drink some water. I go to the tap and down a couple of glasses of water and go outside and sit on my porch. After a couple of minutes, things calm down, but it's very temporary. I start getting an extreme thirst, as if all the water is leaving my mouth. The high also has suddenly changed. Rather than fluidic spiral-like patterns, suddenly everything has a very jagged geometric patterning. I am also experiencing extreme spatial distortions, as well as a sensation that there is a separate layer of reality just outside the one I am in, where my body is going through extremely chaotic and violent events. I can actually sometimes see the second reality as an overlay of the one I'm currently situated in. I go back and drink some more water and call a friend to come over, but he lives about a half hour away. At this point, things were really starting to get weird. I am definitely tripping hard, but there is this other element of something like a poisoning. This extreme thirst is now really starting to geek me out, and I am getting stronger waves of weakness, as if I'm about to black out again. I look down at my hands, and they are shaking rapidly and uncontrollably. I also start dry heaving, with a bit of water coming up occasionally. At this point, I think that things are really starting to go wrong, and I decide that I'm going to have to call 911. I make the call, and they show up in about 5 minutes from calling. They strap me into the stretcher and start questioning me about what I have taken, how I took it, if I was on anything else. The police then show up and ask about what the situation is. I told the paramedic that what I had taken was similar to mushrooms, and she thinks that what I took was some kind of mushroom mixture. The cop makes a remark about it being crazy shit and laughs. I had the substance to give to the paramedic, and she showed it to the cops, but they decided to send it along with me for testing. As we are driving, the paramedic in the back with me starts talking to me about ecstasy, and how I never know what I might be taking when I'm taking it. Thanks, I guess. I am then taken into the emergency room, where they hook me up to a bunch of machines to monitor my vitals. I am so thankful that they decided to just watch and see what happens, rather than immediately deciding to pump my stomach. I spent another 2 hours in this hospital room, still feeling as if I'm about to die. My body is now very weak, and I am extremely thirsty still. They took a blood sample, which made things even worse for a while, and then kind of let me just ride things out, monitoring what was going on. After a while, I was moved to the regular emergency room to wait things out, and I was starting to get my strength back, and I was also coming down from the high. They let my friend come in and hang out with me while I waited. While I was there, I definitely got a second-class citizen attitude for most of the staff. The doctor eventually came in and told me that they were going to let me leave, and that they disposed of the chemical. He said that if I wanted to do something like that again, that I should think hard about it. I guess my blood work also showed that I'd smoked up recently. I had been vaporizing with my girlfriend the night before, because he said that the marijuana was going to have to be my decision as well. I have been in many situations where I felt overwhelmed, but I have never felt something like this before, where my body felt as if it was starting to shut itself down.
I think I experienced what it would be like to die. I took the dose at roughly 12 PM, thinking it to be around 15 milligrams, not having bothered re-weighing the capsule it was in. I then went to eat some breakfast, and then settled on some meditation outside in the yard. After a few minutes of meditation, I opened my eyes and was surprised to see that I was tripping in earnest. Normally I'm used to the gradual revealing of different visual effects in my trips. However, the plants around me had a strange morphing quality to them already, and my perception was quite off. I headed back inside, hoping that I was sober enough to do some light reading and enjoy my day. Upon entering my house, I realised that something was not right. I was experiencing a very uncomfortable body load and ended up on my couch, writhing a bit, staring off into space for what felt like an hour. I kept trying to reassure myself that even if I had taken more than I had initially thought, for at the time of taking the capsule it looked a little overly full, that I was completely safe physically, and no harm would come to me. Unfortunately, this spiraled off to some bad thoughts about my health in general, and led to me pacing frantically around my house. I stumbled around for a while, feeling slightly better to be in motion, pacing rapidly about, trying to calm down, thinking repeatedly, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going somewhere. Generally, when taking psychedelics, I take a small dose of psilocin with them, which I find helps with mental confusion. But being out of that though, I was starting to get lost in thought loops, which started a downward spiral. Panicking, I rushed outside and stumbled to the grass where I attempted to throw up, thinking that I needed to get whatever unprocessed amount of the drug was still in my stomach up. This ended up being a feeble gesture, ending in my realization that such a small amount of something at 39 milligrams was likely to have long since been absorbed. I still was feeling an incredibly powerful body load, but it eased up a bit as I sat cross-legged on my patio. I started to talk to myself to calm down, to ensure myself that everything would be fine, but at this point I started to be foggy-headed in the idea of self. I don't remember much of the conversation I had, but it ended with the realization that I might try and kill myself, that my current headspace was so bad that death felt like a light-hearted way of turning off the bad sensation. Realizing that this was incredibly bad, I immediately stood up and rushed to my bathroom, deciding that a shower would possibly help. I entered my bathroom and immediately rushed and opened the toilet, feeling I was going to vomit. I sat for a bit till this sensation passed, and then decided to be on with my shower. However, as I started to take off my shoes, I was hit with an overwhelming wave of miasma and depression. I rushed through the door and out of my side door, collapsing on the pavement, laying there fearing to go inside, for it was an evil place. I lay on the pavement for a long while, till I realised that I should probably go inside and lay on my bed, as that is what beds are for after all. I checked the time as I walked past the microwave, and saw that it was 12:55, less than an hour in. At this point, I started to cry. I curled up in my bed and lay there, afraid of life, of myself, that I might hurt myself, that my world was ending. Every judgment of my character, of missed opportunities, of why I wasn't a worthwhile person, how I should just kill myself and get it over with. I decided that this was too much, and trying to think of a way to kill the trip, which was still before peak as far as I could tell, I stumbled to my desk and found a bar of Xanax, which I chewed and swallowed. I fell back on top of my bed, shaking, almost convulsing like in my movements, thinking that I was dying, and being okay with that. After a while I started to feel calmer, but still frightened. I elected to take another half of Xanax, and then another half a little later when the depression started coming back. I was still terrified I was going to hurt myself, so I stumbled about and found my dog, and lay with her. Crying and holding her, thinking about how I couldn't die, how the people in my life would miss me, how it would be unfair to them to die and leave them. But I kept going over how people die, it happens all the time. Imitation of a new man's voice. A local resident died today. He was found to have killed himself in his home. Toxicology found high levels of... I could die. Life ends. No one ever thinks it will be them. Death is normal. The next few hours, from 1:30 till 6 p.m, I lay in bed. My dad dropped by at some point, but I hardly remember anything, except telling him I was sick and needed to stay in bed. I just stared up at the ceiling, looking at all the terrible, evil faces who were judging me, occasionally asking them why they were there. I'd like to say I would never repeat this. However, after this terrible fear, my curiosity started to peak, and I feel that I will make journeys this far again when I am better prepared and ready to cope with what my mind shows me. I definitely regret taking Xanax. However, I am thankful I did not hurt myself in any way. All in all, it was an interesting day. Near-death experience. I did research for DMT before taking this substance, as I do all psychedelics, and saw no cause for concern as to its relative safety. Even though it is the synthetic variety, and I previously felt inclined to limit myself to those compounds occurring only in nature, I knew that it was unlikely that I'd get access to its natural, well-known counterpart psilocybin because of its illegal status in my country. Therefore, I was compelled to revise my criteria. Before swallowing one 20mg tablet of this substance in the early afternoon, I had consumed a light snack for breakfast and yerba mate tea within a couple of hours prior. I had a bowl of rice with pesto sauce waiting on the kitchen counter in case I got hungry. The effects of the drug came on fairly quickly, peaking after a couple of hours. Amidst the intense visuals of this stage of the experience, I felt pangs of hunger and decided to eat my bowl of rice. Although the flavour was enhanced, as soon as I took a bite, my closed-eye visuals morphed from basically positive colours and patterns to ugly, grotesque images of rotting, decaying flesh and the like. This was eventually followed by intense waves of nausea and open-eye visuals of distorted and diminishing colours of my surroundings. By now, the nausea had reached an intensity that could only be likened to suffocation. I managed to make it to the bathroom in time to see an image of my face in the mirror that appeared ghostly grey-white, like a cadaver. My complexion is normally more of an olive, Mediterranean colour. During these events, I heard words like poison or danger ringing in my head, and a sense of red alert while spinning out of control. I felt what resembled an electrical current running out through my fingertips. Although I never vomited, this phase of the experience culminated in me momentarily losing consciousness and collapsing on the floor. Soon after regaining my equilibrium and getting back on my feet, I returned to a state of relative normalcy, with only a subtle feeling of stomach upset. From this point, the remainder of my experience was characterised by the pleasant effects of what might be expected of a typical trip, as I gradually came back to baseline. My conclusion regarding this experience is that the food I ingested, while under the effects of 4-ACO-DMT, caused a violent chemical reaction in my body, resulting in an effective blackout. Since this experience, I have suffered no negative after effects, and believe myself to be in perfect mental and physical health, at least to the same extent as I was prior to the event. Therefore, I don't feel inclined to visit a doctor for an evaluation. This is my personal choice. I hope this personal account of my experience with this compound is of value to anyone else who may be contemplating its use. My lesson was to always exercise caution when introducing a new chemical to my biological system. At the same time, life is filled with risks, and, in my opinion, this was one worth taking.
I'm almost certain my dose was higher than planned. This is a story about my first high dose of 4-ACO-DMT. I've taken LSD many times alone at 200 micrograms plus, so I was pretty confident with where I was at mentally, but this was the trip that opened the bottle of past trauma up. Initially, I was just chilling with my girlfriend, taking it easy. She was at 20 milligrams and I was at 40 milligrams. I normally do it on my own, but thought company would be nice. Finding the intensity of 40 milligrams quite intense, but felt confident and wanted to push it as the 4-ACO had not been nearly as introspective as LSD. So I weighed up another 40 milligrams at roughly the peak, gave my girlfriend another 17 milligrams, and strapped in. I was planning on just chilling watching a movie and just thinking about my work issues in a different light and just keep on keeping on with my life. Not even 10 minutes later, while filling up a glass of water, it hit me like an absolute train. I did not have any time to strap in or anything. I ran to my room with racing thoughts, dry heaving laid down on my side with my bin trying to contain myself. I could not at all. My girlfriend came in asking me what was going on. I was just trying to play it off being sick so I didn't drag her down with me. Everything started growing, and my entire room was growing by multiple meters at a time, and everything had folded into itself so much, I thought things had an extra dimension to them. While I still had a body, my girlfriend was moving all around the room. When she wasn't, she was growing and shrinking. My whole body felt like an open flesh wound, and everything I touched started dissolving in my hand that one of my friends called my girlfriend for ketamine, and I was so scared they were calling because they were on the way to beat me up. I had no control of my thoughts. I was trying to meditate to bring it down a notch, but the closed-eye visuals had become so intense that they were realer than real. I tried to take 30 milligram codeine pills to numb the thoughts, but they had no chance. I then rolled over, closed my eyes, and entered the void. I disappeared, and I was at the hospital, walking into the same room where my child had died with my ex-girlfriend, and all the nurses saying, "Look what you did. You shouldn't be here." Then after I spent what felt like infinite time in complete hysterics over reliving my child's death, I was sent straight to all my abuse as a child, and I just wanted to die. I got a slight break and came back to my body, and my dead child was coming out of my girlfriend. This was when I was 1 second off going and grabbing a knife and stabbing myself in the temple so it would end, but I felt like I'd just be stuck there forever if I killed myself. I then told my girlfriend to play some Mac DeMarco so I can try Zen. While I was rolling around thinking in my head, what the fuck have I done? I'm losing my fucking mind. There was a chant in my head of complete gibberish. That kept getting louder and was only there when these entities were in the room. And every time it said, Huns, I got so much fear and complete loss of control. The intensity came on even harder, and it basically knocked me back into the void. And this time, I was sent to my work, and I was screaming to my workmates for help, and they kept chanting, "You've been here before, you shouldn't be here." Then I start reversing everything. I am grateful in my life and meditating, because I wasn't able to let go, so I damn well was putting up a fight for my life. I spent the next 8 hours reliving old traumatic memories and was driving in a car at one point, and it was about to crash, and I was just praying it was the one that killed me. Time was completely out the window, and I was so terrified and suicidal, but I managed to push through going down every rabbit hole of the mind. I came back to my body and went out for a smoke, and the visuals were still so intense, but coming back to normal. I was so grateful that it was over and went to my bed and watched Madagascar, just trying to work out what even happened and what I can bring back from that, because all I've got now is PTSD on top of PTSD. I would not wish this upon anyone, and I feel like there's a few people that can relate to the void of no time, no nothing, just thinking you're dead and reliving old memories. I was shown the darker side of mushrooms, and I'm sure with enough time, I can start to understand it a bit more and try to take what I can from it. I just wanted to vent my experience that's clogging my mind. Happy tripping. Less is definitely more.